Hello and welcome to Jesus for Asia Now. Today we want to talk about our Bethel evening schools. But first I want to share with you the shocking statistic that 16,000 children die every day for malnutrition and starvation. Honey, how does this happen?
Well, the vast majority of them do happen in third world countries. Countries that basically have a really difficult time to provide enough food and nutrition for their children to grow properly.
And that's mainly because of poverty.
Absolutely. There's a lot of different aspects of poverty that we, living in the West, don't really understand. In the United States, when you're really poor, a lot of times you're still quite overweight. And we actually spend as much in the United States on weight loss as it would take to actually feed the rest of the world and eradicate poverty or malnutrition completely. But the truth is, malnutrition happens when there's not enough money to buy food. There's not work, there's not some kind of system to provide for them when they get into hard times. And so these kids just go into malnutrition. They can't get enough food. They can't get enough of the right kind of food.
So part of it's that they're poor.
Absolutely.
Part of it's that some places they can't find jobs. And part of it's the jobs that they do find don't pay enough to provide.
Right. And what's happening today is that a lot of people are migrating to the cities. And even in the rural places, if you get a drought, I mean, some places their whole existence depends on next year's crop. And if there's a drought or if they get the wrong kind of seeds and things don't produce, then they end up in a very difficult situation.
So which countries are we looking at here, or what country? Because today we've got a particular project, the Bethel Evening Schools, and that is in India.
Yes.
So what about India?
I've seen the statistic online that India has a third of the world's poor, just in that one country. There's a lot of child death in India due to poverty. Even if it's not death, there's a lot of other things that happen to a child when they don't get enough nutrition. Even if they don't die, they may end up being stunted in their growth, stunted in their mental ability.
Yeah, I remember reading an article that was talking about that, how the children, because they weren't getting enough to eat, they couldn't learn. They became unable to learn.
Right. And so that is part of the cycle of poverty. If you're unable to learn, you're unable to get an education, you're unable to do very good work, you're then unable to provide for your family, and so therefore the cycle of poverty continues. And it's a downward spiral. The two biggest challenges, actually three as Christians, for children in poverty situations, in order to grow and thrive, number one is getting enough nutrition. Okay. If they don't get enough nutrition, they can't get an education, they can't go forward, they can't develop. And there's a lot of people that don't get that kind of nutrition. Like you said, 16,000 people die every day. Children from malnutrition. They're dying, even today, because of malnutrition, lack of food. So what do we do about that? Well, the best thing is to get them more food, to feed them. And the second biggest challenge that they have is the challenge of getting an education so that they can think different, so they can even see themselves getting out of that situation. Because when you've been living day to day all your life, that's just what you expect. And so thinking outside the box, shall we say. And then the third one is this system of poverty is actually entrenched in their religion. Okay? Hinduism has a caste system where if you are born as an outcast, shall we say, then that's your place in life for the rest of your life. And there is no getting out of that.
And your children's lives and their children's lives and on and on and on.
Yes.
Never ending.
Yes, exactly. And so there's four main castes. You know, there's the Brahmin and the, I forgot all of them, but then there's the outcast. Okay? And so if you're born in one of the lower castes or one of the outcasts, you can't change that. And unless you change religions. And it's amazing, this concept of the gospel that all men are created equal. That's a Christian concept. You don't find that anywhere else.
That everybody is of equal value.
Yes, that is a Christian concept. And so when we share that Christian concept and when they accept Jesus into their lives, now all of a sudden all kinds of doors start opening up. Doors like education. Oh, I can get an education? The system that keeps me, under the thumb is wrong? Really? Oh, I'm of value to God just as I am? Wow. Well, my family's of value too. So therefore, I have the right to go pursue an education, to learn, and to get a job just like everyone else.
Well, don't we have something to show
Yeah.
the viewers what it's like there?
Can you ask him how he likes his work?
உங்களுக்கு இந்த மாதிரி தொழில் பிடிக்குமா பிடிக்காதா என்ன செய்யறது வேலை இல்ல வெட்டி இல்ல
Back around 2001, I was videotaping in a slum. I came across this young man who was sorting through recyclable trash. He looked like a college-age student. I asked him, I was videotaping, I asked him, do you like doing this? Would you like to do something else? I said, what's your career? And he said something, and the translator said, this is all he can do. He's an outcast.
So he didn't have any choice.
He didn't have any options, had no options at all. Because of how he was born, that dictated who he's going to be, what he can do, where he can go, that he can't get an education. I mean, by law, he's supposed to get an education, but in reality, it's very difficult to get a decent education that will lift him out of that or give him opportunities to get out of that situation. To me, he looked like a bright, intelligent, happy young man. Why would he be denied opportunities to grow and to do something else with his life? Coming from a culture where that is important, to lift yourself up with your own bootstraps, get an education, move your life forward, have it so that your kids have a better life than you had. All these wonderful dreams and aspirations that we have, for that to be denied a young man so that he doesn't even have an opportunity to do better.
No option.
No option.
No option.
To me, that's just wrong. And for me to go back to a regular life and say, thank you, God, for everything that I have, and ignore his life, I can't
And
do
don't
that.
try
I
and not try
cannot-
to do anything.
I cannot do that.
So you went back to that slum
Yes,
a few years later,
yes,
and you followed a man that did that for a living.
Yes.
He went and picked up trash.
yes, Bhaskar.
We have a little video
Yes.
from that to show.
I asked my translator if we could go there when they do their, because they go early in the morning, because if they go later in the morning, then all the recyclables are gone. And
Somebody
so they
gets
have to
them
go,
before them.
yeah, so they have to go early in the morning. So I got there at 4:30 in the morning, and I found all these people sleeping on the sidewalk. It's 4:30 in the morning, and I'm here at one of the slums in Madras, India. I've gotten permission through Pastor Samuel to follow a trash collector named Bhaskar on his morning route.
They are all rag pickers and papers, some papers and old things and tins and bottles from the garbage, and they take it to the shop and sell them and get some money out of that, and then they try to buy some groceries or rice and cook and eat. I asked a question, why they sleep
How's
here?
going? What are they going? எல்லாம் மழை கிளச்சுன்னு வந்துச்சு மனசால மழை பெஞ்சா ஓடுறதுனால பக்கமா படம் கிடையாது துணி கிடையாது மாற்றி கட்டிக்கிட்டு
So they say when the flood came and the houses were washed away the other side, so they lost all their huts and the belongings and the things. So they have nothing. So they are sleeping on this platform. Totally washed away. 25 houses.
So how long will they think that they have to stay here?
எவ்வளோ நாள் இப்படி இருப்பீங்க அப்படின்னு கேட்குறாரு.
இங்கே தாங்கிறோம்
They will continue to stay as long as they live, because they belong to a lower caste of people, so they don't have any proper houses or any proper care from the government. They are requesting, our children are not studying, can you do some help for them
They're
to
what?
get some education?
Oh, education.
Yes.
Are there schools they can go to?
இங்கே வேறு ஏதாவது பள்ளிக்கூடம் இருக்கா போகிறாங்க? They have a government school, but they don't treat the children or the teacher come to the class or to take care of them, so they are not going to the school properly. 2-3 small children of his went to the school, but nobody came to take care of them, teachers or anybody, so they all stopped, the parents stopped the children going to the school.
And so what amazed me is that they didn't ask for money. They didn't ask for their tents to be rebuilt or utensils for them to cook with. They asked for one thing. They asked for an education.
For for their children.
An education for their children, because they know that this is the only way that these kids will have a better life and not be trapped.
So because of that video,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the burden that God laid on the heart of our director in India,
Mm-hmm.
we have Bethel Evening Schools now.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the Bethel Evening Schools? What do we do there?
Well, when we started the first one, we had our director in India go into a village and do a survey. How many of you could read? How many of you could write? How many of you were getting an education, all that kind of stuff. And even though they were given an education at the government school, out of 62 kids that they interviewed, 12 of them could read and write. So
That's
that
not a
means
very large percentage.
50 kids could not read and write. That's like,
That's-
wow.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example of what this looks like, they need to go downtown or someplace else in the city. They go to a bus stop and they have to ask somebody, what does that bus say? Is that going where I need to go? And if the person is nice and tells them right, then they can get on the right bus. But if nobody's at the bus stop, or if they're, kind of playing tricks on them, they end up in the wrong
In
part of
somewhere
town.
else.
Yeah. They don't know what's happening with their bodies. They don't know anything what to do. Go to the doctor. Some people are unfamiliar with money. They don't know how to count. We were at an evangelistic series once, and a lady came up asking for some money. So we gave her a 500 rupee note. And
Paper.
Paper. And she went walking around, and she was asking her friends, why did they give me this paper? I need money. And they're like, well, that is money. Really? This isn't money. This is just paper. She had never held paper money in her life. She had lived in such poverty all of her life that she'd always been doing everything with coins.
Wow.
But I think back in her life, what if somebody had given her paper money and she didn't know what it was? What did she do with it? Did she throw it away? A little bit of education
Maybe.
would have made such a difference in her life. When she found out how much money that was, it just blew. She just broke down and cried in tears because she'd never had. 500 rupees, that's $10.
Yeah.
$10. Another time, this is in Indonesia, I went and visited a family there, just on the side of the road. We just dropped in unannounced and asked them, because I was videotaping, I wanted to see how they cook in their home. So they let me in, the little family, they ate. And on the way out, I gave them $10. They didn't ask for it, but I just wanted to. And they were blown away. And as I was leaving, the translator, the friend that I was with, says,
enough to feed them for probably 1 week or 2 weeks.
$10. Out of this came a dream. What can we do? If these people that are on the edge of starvation with their houses swept away are asking for education for their kids, that's what we need to give. But not just education, but we need to provide something for them to eat. Our director in India came up with this idea, which was brilliant in my mind, because it provides two of the most basic needs of these children that are growing up in poverty situations. Number one is an education. Number two is the nutrition. Okay?
And
that's
what's the
evening
third thing
school.
it provides?
As a Christian, it provides the means, the thing that they really need the most, that they don't understand. They don't know that they need this the most, but access and a knowledge of the true God that can really help them on a day-by-day basis, that is with them, that cares about them, and that sees great value in them.
Okay,
That
so we
builds
have
that value
we
in.
have education.
Education.
So they bring their schoolwork from the government school, and they have teachers there that tutor them
Yes.
in their schoolwork from the government school.
And makes sure they are learning how to read. It's not so easy to learn Tamil. They've got like 230 characters in their
Yeah.
alphabet.
Or more.
Somewhere in there. You get different numbers from who you talk to. We got 26, they got over 200. But they make sure that they learn how to read. They make sure they learn how to do math so they can count their money and make sure they're not getting ripped off. They make sure they learn how to do the writing and that they can move forward in life. And then they provide a free evening meal, which has got not only rice, but it also has vegetables.
And they make them eat their vegetables.
Yes.
And some of them are really reluctant at the beginning to eat their vegetables.
Yes.
But it sticks with them a lot longer if they eat the vegetables and not just the rice and
Well, that's
the
where
sauce.
the nutrition is.
Right.
I've seen kids, and this is a short clip here, of a child having his daily meal. And what's in that cup is just some rice in the bottom with a lot of water. And you can see him drinking. That's his normal meal. And if he goes out begging whatever he can find in the street from people or whatever people throw out, he might eat some of that. But with the second meal, with just the one meal that we provide in a day, that's the second meal. And so you see kids that have been going to the school for a couple years, And you compare that to kids that don't go to this school. It's a huge difference. Their skin is glowing, it's shining, they got light in their eyes. They're eager. You can just see that desire to learn in these kids' eyes. It's such a thrill to see these kids grow.
Now, we have some stories from some of the evening schools about
Okay.
how they've used the knowledge that they've gotten. You want to share one of those stories?
Yeah, we've got one story of a child that had been coming to our evening school for a year or so. He went home one day and his mom was laying in bed, couldn't get up, couldn't make the meal, couldn't take care of the family because she had a big headache. I mean, it was one of those debilitating headaches. And I said, "Mommy, what's wrong?" "Oh, I headache. Oh, I just can't get over this headache." And the little boy says, "Well, why don't we pray to Jesus?" And this is a home with all the Hindu gods, the pictures that they worship, and the little shrine up there with the incense. And the little boy said, "We need to pray to Jesus." And the mother said, "Okay." So the little boy knelt down and prayed like he'd learned at the Bethel Evening School. "Dear Jesus, please heal my mommy. Make the pain in her head go away." Boom, it was gone. She got up, made the meal, and then she took her son down to the school and said, "This is what your God did for me." There's some extreme radical Hindus that kind of come in and they're upset about what's happening. Anything that has to do with Christianity, they try to shut down. So they got a little group together and they were going to come and they were going to go into the school and they were going to beat up the schoolmaster. The local neighbors, they got together and came out and says, "No, these people, they're helping our children. They have done nothing here but help our children to learn. They're feeding our children. They're good people. You leave these guys alone. Go away."
And they protected him.
Absolutely. And so this is in a neighborhood where normally you'd have a high prejudice against anything Christian. But the school has been in there, they've been serving the children, they've been helping the children, and the barriers have broken down, and now there's a bond. And the people in the neighborhood are appreciating this ministry, and they don't want to see this school closed down. So the first school has been going on for 8 years. Now these kids have been spending 8 years learning about Christ and reading
And some of them
growing.
are gone now, out of the school. They're too.
Yes,
They're
and we
too
haven't had a
old for it.
chance to track them, to see what's happened in their lives, see what difference it has made. But
Yeah.
it's this kind of thing, much more than a big evangelistic series that talks to them for maybe 8 days or even a month. But this is a daily thing.
Right.
And what a powerful impact this is going to have in the long run. Totally excited about this.
Right. So they learn memory verses, they learn songs, they learn different things. They hear
Yes.
character building stories from the Bible and other sources that encourage them to live a morally upright life and to
And their-
learn about God and
their
what He can
families
do.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we want to talk a little bit briefly about the Saving the Lives ministry that James and Marianne started.
Well, you know, when my daughter was 4 years old and my son was 6, I was thinking, how do we get our kids excited about what we're doing? Because the truth is that we're making sacrifices doing this work. Daddy's gone quite a bit. We don't have the same kind of maybe clothes. We don't have the same kind of cars that other people might have because we're putting all this money and resources and time into this project that we're so in love with. Well, how do we get our kids involved? My daughter was 4, son was 6. We got a whole group together with 6 different teams and we went over and did a mass evangelism series in 6 different places. And we took our kids, 4 and 6.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, we were standing in one of these little churches. James is surrounded with kids. It was noisy. They were playing. And James leaned up against the wall and says, "Daddy, this is what I want to do with my life." And they caught the vision. And then on the way home, when we got home, Marianne, at 4 years old, came up with, let's start our own club. We call it Saving the Lives. She came up with this idea.
Right. And they wanted to be helping the children in India and Thailand because we had also been to Thailand that trip.
Yeah.
But they realized that kids need to be involved in helping other kids. And they
Yeah.
wanted kids helping kids as part of their, their plan.
Yeah.
And so it became a passionate thing for them to do different things. For example, every Christmas they like to make cookies to sell.
Yeah.
And one year they were selling cookies and hot chocolate on the side of the road in the middle of winter to fundraise so the kids could have Christmas presents.
Yes, it's called Saving the Lives Club because that's what we're doing. It's not just a program that we've got going. We're actually saving lives.
Right.
It actually saves lives.
It saves them for now and for eternity.
And for eternity, which is more important.
Right.
Yeah, they saw the poverty, they saw the need, and they got excited about it. And Marianne, at 4 years old, came up with, let's start our own club. We call it Saving the Lives, their own
Okay.
ministry.
Yeah. So they've done different projects through the years, and there are people that we have these little self-denial boxes.
Self-denial box? What's a self-denial box?
It's a box where you put the money that you would have spent on yourself. You put it and you give it as an offering.
So instead of that $5 ice cream or that $2 ice cream,
You would
Put
put the
$2.
money in the box.
but what can
And then you
$2
would-
do?
What can $2 do? Well, at our evening schools, for example, we got these self-denial boxes at one point and we gave them out. And other people have made their own since then because we didn't have enough. But basically what they do is if they're going to spend money on themselves, instead of spending it on themselves, they choose to put that money, that $2 or that $5, in the self-denial box. And then they send it and it goes to feed the children in the Bethel evening schools, or it goes to help at the orphanage, depending on where the need is greatest that month. So we have these children that got involved. And there are still people that have those churches or have the self-denial boxes that fill them up and then send all the money at once. So we'll get these bags of coins.
Yeah.
We encourage people to get converted
to the
into a
bank.
check.
Yes.
Because it's safer than sending money. But if we see them, they bring us the church and they
Yeah.
empty the church right there. And then we have the bags of coins to carry around until we get to the bank. But it's such a neat thing because, you know, anybody has 5 cents, 10 cents, a quarter, whatever, and it adds up to quite a bit. Besides that, we have calculated that it costs $7 a month for one child to go to the Bethel evening schools. So that translates to about a quarter a day. So if you think about it that way, all these coins that people collect in their self-denial boxes, or the $2 ice cream that they denied to themselves and put that money in there instead, can do a lot.
That one $2 ice cream, that's 8 meals and 16 hours of education for one child.
Right,
That's crazy.
right. And it's amazing the blessing that it is.
Yeah,
And it makes a huge difference.
yeah.
Now, you have a story of a starfish that you'd like to share with us,
Oh,
I know.
man. You know, when we were first starting this ministry, we were looking at the huge numbers. It's like, my goodness, 120 million people under the poverty line. Now, the poverty line is different from country to country. In America, a poverty line is if you make less than $1,000 a month. Okay? That equals to about, $30 a day? A little more, about $33 a day in America. If you make less than $30 a day, you're considered under the poverty line. In India, the poverty line is $1.26 a day. Okay, so
That's not very much.
that's not very much. And you've got 120 million people under that poverty line.
Wow.
And when we started thinking about starting this ministry, it's like, my goodness, how are we going to affect 120 million people? How are we going to fix that problem? That's impossible. So, you know, just these waves of discouragement were coming over us, thinking, how can we even make a dent in a problem of that size? And then I found this story that just made all the difference to me. And it's about this father and son, they're walking down this beach. And they see, during high tide, millions and millions of starfish had been washed up on the beach. And the tide had gone out, and they were stranded up there. They were dying. And so the little boy picked one up and threw it in. Picked another one up, threw it in. Picked another one up, threw it in. The father says, what are you doing that for? You're not going to save all these. There's thousands of starfish out here. You're not going to be able to make a dent in all this number. What are you even trying for? And the little boy says, I may not make all the difference in the world, but for this one, I will make all the difference in the world. And he throws another one in. He saved that one life. And so that's been such an encouragement for us. So we may not be able to save 100 million people, but if we can save one, my goodness, we've done the world for that one child. We may not be able to do something for everybody, but for one, we can make the world of difference. Just one.
Just one.
And since we've started, there's been over 200,000 meals served with these kids, and that gives me such joy. I mean, I used to be into cars. I used to have a Fiat Spider, and then later I got an Alfa Romeo Spider, and I had a Saab Turbo. I used to like to drive fast, and I got pleasure out of those cars, driving fast. And now I don't have
Top down
those.
and all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And but now I've got evening schools, We were just there last year. We went down and saw these evening schools and these kids screaming at the top of their voices, Jesus, love, Sunda Shabongole, whatever. I'm not very good with that song, but it's like I got so much joy out of that, much more than those cars. And also there's that joy of looking forward, that hope of maybe one of these kids or some of these kids or a bunch of these kids will be in heaven someday. And we get to spend an eternity with them.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. That's really cool.
So before we close, we're almost to the end, but I know that costs have increased a little bit. It used to cost us about $400 to open one and then about $300 to maintain it every month. But because of the cost of fuel and everything have gone up, it's about $450 a month to open a new school and about $350 a month to maintain it. And that varies. We say an average of $350 because some of them are less expensive because we can hold them in local churches.
Yes.
And then the rent is less, or they don't even charge us rent. It just depends on the location.
Depends a lot on how many kids come from the community.
Right. If we have to rent a place because there's too many children or because there's not a local church, then it costs quite a bit more. So it's not that expensive. And we had a kindergarten class in a church that actually raised the $400 at that time to open a new school. And they were so ecstatic. And then their church got into providing monthly for that school.
Yes.
And it was awesome to see them provide. At this point, we have 4 schools and we have so many requests for more.
Yes.
It's just heartbreaking to think of how many more places would like to have these schools, but we're not able to offer them, or we haven't been able to offer them to date. So that's one thing that the Saving the Lives Club has been doing, has been fundraising to open a new school, and then they'll be fundraising every month to try to support it. But these kinds of things, it's not that expensive considering how much other things cost and how much it costs us to live here. We can make a huge difference for the children there, and it's a lot of children at a time. I mean, some of these villages, we have 30, 40, 50 kids coming.
60, 80, 100.
Yeah. One school got so big they had to have it in 2 locations now, so the older children are in one place. But anyway, we just want to remind our viewers that you can make a difference, a major difference in the life of one, just by helping with these evening schools. And it doesn't cost very much. It's actually a pittance compared to how much it costs us to live here. So I just want to encourage you to be a part of the changes that God wants to make, of the witnessing that God wants to do in the world today. And may God richly bless you as you choose to make a difference in the life of one.
You may send your tax-deductible gift to Jesus for Asia, P.O. Box 1221, Collegedale, Tennessee 37315. Or you can call us at 423-413-7321. Or you can also find us on the web at jesusforasia.org.